Today we're talking about why people from California and other states leave Portland, Oregon after moving here. So if you're thinking of leaving the Golden State for the gloomier and rainier Pacific Northwest, then watch today's video to see 5 reasons that Californians regret moving to Portland, Oregon. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Tim Jackson, and if you're new here, I'm a real estate agent in Oregon and Washington. I make videos like this every week to bring you the top content of what it's like to live, move, play up here in our beautiful little corner of the Pacific Northwest. By the end of today's video, you're gonna hear why some people, after already doing all that research and making the effort to move here, decided it wasn't the right city for them. So ultimately, you can decide if Portland, Oregon, or its suburbs is the right place for you to relocate to. So let's talk about the first thing, which is the weather. Now, it shouldn't be a surprise that Oregon obviously gets a lot more rain, and that torrential downpour that you just saw is actually fairly atypical, but it's what's keeping me inside my little speakeasy today. I'm not the only Oregonian that likes to make tucked in little spaces to keep out of the rain. While you see architecture and people making homes more suited for outdoor living in California, you'll see that a lot more people in Portland love to be indoors, specifically because of our October to March non-stop gray clouds. And while our summers do have a small hint of that California love, you really need to be comfortable with the shorter days in the winter where you're not going to see the sun as often. While 155 days on average rain per year, and we see about 36 inches of rain every year, you'll really notice that the blue skies will come out even on the dreariest of days. So it's not all as dreary as it sounds. I just had a couple that I met with on Monday, and they were up from LA, and they experienced some of the nicest weather we've had this late winter, early spring season. And they noted that a lot of the days, even if there were gray clouds, they really felt like it was a little bit overblown. So that's coming directly from a Californian. Now, number 2 is going to be the cost of living, because while many people are relocating from places like Los Angeles, Seattle, and San Francisco, others might be used to a more affordable pricing, or they're far enough out from the major cities that the price shock of Portland actually hits them pretty hard. And so for some, that average home price of about $580,000 any given month is going to come as an absolute sticker shock. And they may also remember Portland from a bygone era when we were a much cheaper city than before home prices really took off. While in the last couple of years, the market has cooled off significantly, so that you're kind of seeing a mix of it being right in the middle of a buyer's and seller's market. We have never really blown off the steam, so that housing is kind of just locked in where it's at. But this is really the thing that a lot of people aren't talking about, and you're probably not going to hear it anywhere else. But the question that I get asked a lot when people are relocating and asking if Portland's a good permanent fit for them is, how much do I need to make it in the city? And my general rule of thumb is that if you're trying to live comfortably, $10,000 a month is going to get you by. Now, that's definitely not a fixed rule, and definitely circumstances can be different, but I'd say that if you're trying to have a fairly normal quality of life without stretching too far, the reality is that that $120,000 a year benchmark is where I would hope to be if I moved up here. The third thing that you might hear somebody who's moving back to California complain about is the traffic and transportation situation. There are no 8-lane highways in our Portland area, and while the city's grown rapidly, there's some frustrations over I-5 having a 2-lane bottleneck at one of its most busiest intersections. Portland's also a city that develops within its boundaries, so all that farmland and forest land is going to stay green, and it's close enough to public transportation, but on the back end of it, it means that they're fast tracking SDC condo housing units, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and a lot of these projects don't require additional parking spaces. So if they build a 30-unit apartment building, a lot of these old historic streets might not require all these additional parking places, even though it brings a lot more people in that do drive vehicles. On the flip side, it is just part of Portland's culture to not want to expand transportation infrastructure. You'll see that places on Hawthorne and 37th, for example, this summer, they're going to be blocking it off to all traffic and make it a greenway. And this is becoming a lot more popular in Portland as we're imitating European cities like Amsterdam and want to become more bicycle friendly and more walking pedestrian friendly. Now, of course, many Californians who move here feel a lot more comfortable in suburbs like on the west side in Washington County and up in Vancouver. So to break down that statement though, what I mean is that if somebody's moving from California and they do choose Beaverton or Clark County up in Vancouver, they're not moving there because it replicates California to a T at all. I would just really say the convenience part is what they find fits their lifestyle, but from a local politics standpoint or a safety standpoint, I've actually noticed that a lot of Californians move to those places because they're so different from what they say California was like. And Portland is making massive inroads to addressing the large flux of people that have moved in. The I-5 bridge is going through a massive development project, and the 205 bridge across Oregon City to Westland is undergoing upgrades as well. So the fourth reason that you might see somebody pack their bags and leave, head back to the state they came from, is the culture shock. Portland still has held on to what makes Portland, Portland. It's a little bit weird. Some will say that Portlandia really describes the east side of Portland, while the west side has a lot of creative professionals living in the forest. And while Vancouver and down in Clackamas County sort of just set their own tone and are their own separate entities, you'll also see a completely different vibe happening over in Beaverton, like I noted earlier. But this vibe is a lot different from what some Californians and people coming from out of state might expect. I talked to a couple moving from Los Angeles, and they said they were leaving LA because the particular neighborhood that they lived in had lost its small town vibe, where they said artists had moved there 30 or 40 years ago. They came to Portland and saw certain pockets had that community that they felt like was lost many years ago. And so they almost seemed to indicate that the Los Angeles they'd fallen in love with had slowly succumbed or disappeared to the Hollywoodization, or what was the Red Hot Chili Peppers song, the Californication. And despite maybe some angry comments that you'll see down below and some of the rhetoric, Portland has not been Californiaized. Nobody has Californiaized Portland, because you still see the culture shock when people are coming from places like LA and San Francisco, seeing the complete breath of fresh air that Portland can be to them. But it might knock the wind out of them if they don't realize Portland's take on progressive values is at once a little bit more libertarian and also a lot stronger in ways. Our environmental concerns, for example, you will see a lot more people that are environmentally conscious here, and Portland doesn't quite have the same influences as the large cities in California. And so while the food carts, the beer scene, the coffee scene, and all of that are things that people are drawn into, you've also got to take that Portland has its own unique quirky culture that makes Portland, Portland. So the fifth thing you should know, and a reason that people are packing their bags and moving, is our job market. While larger cities offer a much broader spectrum of job offerings, Portland does have a limited job market if you're looking to get into a specific industry. I actually had a phone call just this last Thursday with an Italian tennis coach who called and said, "Hey Tim, I'm lining up a job and I'm looking at different cities. What do you think about Portland as a prospective city for becoming a private tennis coach?" And I just had to be honest, like, Portland's not a city with a ton of millionaires. We do have little districts like Lake Oswego and Camas that bring wealth, but quite frankly, we're a lot different from Los Angeles or New York or the big industry cities, even Seattle, that have massive Fortune 500 companies bringing in the dough. We still have behemoths like Nike, Intel, and some smaller fish like Columbia Sportswear, and I can even get into all of these different brands that are represented within the Portland, Oregon market share. But if you're looking to move here and you have a job-specific search, I've noticed a lot more success in people that are either working from home or have a little bit more flexibility. And a key thing to note is that health services and government employment has really buoyed the Portland job market in recent years. And if you're going up over the bridge to Clark County in Vancouver, you're going to see a lot more job openings cropping up as their job growth is rapidly accelerating. So there's actually a lot of companies relocating up to Vancouver, and there's almost a tiny little silicon forest developing up there. right alongside Portland Silicon Force. So some people that are calling and doing a consultation are lining up the job first, and then they're making the move up. And so if you find yourself in that position where you're looking at Portland or Vancouver as a possibility of a city that you're looking to relocate to, and none of these 5 things really pushed you over the edge and said, I don't think I could do Portland, then schedule a consultation right here. I'm happy to chat with you and go over what your specific needs are as you're looking to relocate. I have conversations either on Zoom, phone call, or I'll even sit down and have coffee with people that are pondering the move and wondering how to line it up from an A to Z perspective. I help people relocate like this all the time. And so if that's you, I'd love to chat. Thanks for watching today's video. Stay subscribed along for the journey because we're going over a ton of different things happening in the Portland and Vancouver market, especially on days that are a little bit drier. Thanks for watching this week's video. Watch this video next, and I'll see you next week.